What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to talk about why I'm 31 years old and I'm still single. Now, people keep emailing me and asking me, Jack, why are you still single? You're 31 years old. Why are you still single? Why aren't you in a long-term relationship? And I figured that was a good question, and I should make a video talking about why I'm 31 years old and I'm still single. So, the first reason is that, you know, I can never like forget how I was treated. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, growing up from like all the way up until I was like 20 years old, and even past that point, I was pretty much an incel up until I was like 19, 20 years old. I just couldn't get anything during that time period. I grew up in mostly an all black area, and being different from the typical black stereotype, being like very, very different, I stuck out like a sore thumb. And if you go into any group, this is not just the black community, but if you go into any group of people, the person or any group of period, the people who stick out the most, who diverge too far away from with the group dynamics, they get basically marginalized, right? And that's just how it is. So it's not just like, oh, the black community, but it's with all groups of people, but the black community is more uh, ruthless when it comes to judging, oh, he's a square, or he's a Urkel, or he acts like Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I used to get called Carlton all the time. Some of you guys probably got called that too, but I got called Carlton all the time. People say, you remind me of Carlton from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. But in my mind, no matter how successful I am with women, I can never forget, like, it's all fake love. Deep inside, I know it's all fake, because when I wasn't as, built up as I am now, when I wasn't as successful, you know, people weren't really checking for me, So it's interesting when you see that transition from going from being like a basically an incel to now being able to attract women. You never forget, you can never purge the you can never forget it. You just can never forget how people treated you. You can never forget how you were treated. And I'm not saying I'm holding a grudge or I'm bitter or anything like that, but I do know I'm very cautious. I'm very cautious with women because I know how fake a lot of it is. It's very fake. It's very superficial. So I'm very like cautious with who I trust with my love, who I trust with my companionship. So that's the first reason. The second reason is you know, I've seen so much when it comes to women and dating. I've seen women do some really, really fucked up shit. I've seen women cheat on their boyfriends. I've seen women openly flirt with other guys. I was a dancer for years, and while I was a dancer, I saw so many things. I saw so many ruthless things from women. I saw a lot of ruthless behavior, a lot of cheating, and these were like good relationships. I saw married women getting their coochies popped. I saw it all. I saw all of it, and when you see so much, you start to kind of distrust human nature. And it's not that you're bitter or that you are jaded. It's just that you're very cautious. Like I said earlier, you just seen so much, and game. Like, I already know it's gonna happen. I can see it. I can read women like the back of my, like the palm of my hand. So when you've been in the game for a while, you've seen so much. And that's also a dangerous thing, because I think the more you see, the more disillusioned you become, towards relationship, towards human nature. So that's the other one, that, the fantasy, like, a lot of men have a fantasy for women where they picture, like, true love, and, this woman that's going to love and appreciate them. And that fantasy for me is completely dead. That fantasy is completely gone, completely dead. And I just don't have that fantasy anymore, that naivety of love, of relationships. I just don't have that anymore. So for me to actually get into a relationship, to take a woman seriously, it really is going to take the right woman. No joke about that. The old fantasy and longing to be loved by a woman has pretty much died and long been gone for me, where I just don't care now. Whether I be loved or not, it honestly don't really care. And this might be just a personal thing for me. Like, I'm not saying everybody is this way, but for me, I just don't really care. Being loved, it's not a priority for me. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I just don't care about it. That fantasy of like being loved by a woman and cherished, it's dead. It's just dead. I just don't have that fantasy. And it doesn't mean I wouldn't accept it if it comes along, but I just don't have that fantasy of the girl of my dreams and we start a family. And a lot of men have that fantasy deep inside, and it's deeply rooted through movies, through media, through a lot of things, And it's not I'm not saying it's an issue. That's not a problem if you have that fantasy, but I don't. That fantasy is dead for me. The next one is that I've always preferred being alone, even from an early age. I am what you would call a true loner. I am a person who thrives, and I actually get more happiness from being alone than I do with other people. Now, I'm not saying everybody's that way. I'm not saying social interaction is bad or that having any human contact isn't important, but for me, the way my brain chemistry, the way God made me, the universe made me is I just thrive in solitude. I'm at my best in solitude. My mind is very stimulated by itself. So when I'm in very very stimulated situations, it's just too much stimulation. I don't need human interaction to stimulate my mind. This is why most people need to interact with humans. Most people need to interact with other people because they need that stimulation. For me, my mind stimulates itself. I'm rarely ever bored when I'm alone, but when I'm around other people, I'm bored. I get bored quickly when I'm in groups or around people in crowds, whatever. I get bored very, very quickly. But when I'm by myself, when I'm in solitude, when I'm alone, I rarely ever, ever, ever get bored. For me, that's always been freedom. I've always felt free and at peace and just more happy, when I'm by myself. When I'm with people in groups and crowds, I actually get depressed for some reason. If I go on a 3 day trip with people, I start to like notice my mood and my well being starts to decline drastically. So not everybody's like that, but that is something that factors into why I'm still single. So, relationships isn't a priority for me because I like being alone. I thrive being alone. So I don't necessarily crave that companionship that most men crave. A lot of men want that companionship and they want to do things together. I love doing things by myself. I actually experience things better when I'm doing things alone. When I'm doing things with other people, I tend to get overstimulated and I'm distracted. Other people are around. I can't really enjoy the moment. But when I'm by myself, I can enjoy it. Now, there's a time and place for everything. I'm not saying that, I don't like to do anything with people. Like, I like to go to festivals and things like that and whatever. But I understand myself. I understand my limitations. The next one is that most women want a specific lifestyle that I just don't want to live. A lot of women want to go and do activities. This is why I think it's important if you want a relationship to find women who fit your lifestyle. If you're an introvert, and let's say you get in a relationship with a woman who's an extrovert, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have to sacrifice and compromise so much of your well-being in order to keep that woman happy. Women crave like constant stimulation from the outside world. This is why my highest compatibility is with other introvert women, women who can easily stimulate themselves. They like reading books, they like video games, they like novels and art and knitting, and they're able to be alone. And these are the women who I do the best with. But majority of women want to go do activities. They want to go to wineries and they want to go, do this and new adventures. And I'm not saying I don't want to do that stuff at all, but it's not the lifestyle I want. I like a low key, almost like a monk like lifestyle. Not that I'm like a hermit and I want to remove myself from society, but I just like a low key lifestyle, like a simple, very simple lifestyle. But most women want the dinners, the trips, the this, the that. They want to be constantly doing things and this and that. And it's just like I'm just not willing to compromise my own well being for the sake of a relationship. A lot of men are. A lot of men are willing to compromise their entire well-being and happiness for the sake of a relationship, but I'm just not willing to do that. The next one is a lack of wife material women and compatibility. So one thing I've noticed is, I've came to the conclusion that it's kind of over for me in America, especially America. Now maybe I'll get lucky, whatever. There's a needle in the haystack, right? But I've come to the conclusion that for the type of woman that I want, um, it's just it might not be possible because as a black man, I'm a black man. Obviously, for you people who are new to the channel, I'm a black guy. You know, I there's a certain type of women I attract and that I like, and I'm the most compatible with. And majority of my own race, which is black women, are not like that. They don't match that compatibility. Myself, me, I am not compatible with majority of black women, and I'm not in America. I don't know about Africa and other countries, but in America. And this is not a knock on black women. I don't think black women should change and black women need to do this. No, they need to keep doing them. However, it's not for me. Most black women I just don't find attractive, not even like looks wise. I'm talking about just from a personality compatibility standpoint. I'm just not compatible with the majority of black women. So this leaves me to dating mostly interracially, which is a huge numbers game. Dating interracially, people are like, oh, I see interracial couples all the time. It doesn't matter what you see. The numbers tell you the truth. The stats tell the truth. Most people marry their own races, and that's a fact. So it doesn't matter what you see. Interracial dating is still kind of a marginalized thing, you know. So you have to keep that in mind. But the quality of women is just less and less. Over the years, I've dated so many women, and literally 99% of them have not been wifey material at all. You know, the quality is just less and less. It's a shit show. And like I said, as a black man, there's just a massive shortage of the type of black woman that I'm attracted to. A very feminine, low key, almost like a intellectually. She's maybe into, like, for example, I went to Comic Con, right? I went to the comic festival, whatever, and a lot of those women there were my type of women. A lot of these women were into like nerd stuff, and they were fine too. A lot of these women were very, very fine, black women. But what's so funny is that majority of these women would be with white men. I would see all of these black women with other dating white men, and these will be dime pieces, fine ass black women who are nerds. And I'm like, damn, like why is it that you don't see these type of black women with other nerdy black men? Like, why don't you see that? And it's crazy. So I think as a black man, you pretty much get fucked from both sides. Do Indian and Asian men have it worse? Yes, but they statistically have a higher likelihood of having a successful, good relationship with their own race than black men. There's a reason why, like, what, 60 something percent of black men are single with no kids, whatever the stats are. But I realized that for me, I'm only attracted to certain personality types. I've tried to like date women who I've tried to force it in the past, but you just can't force compatibility. And the next one is that, I've become addicted to freedom. When you're in a relationship, again, unless you find a woman who's very low key, who lets you be a man, she lets you be free. A lot of women want to force men into like this box of being a boyfriend. And I do think there are important aspects of relationships in order to make it function. There are certain things that do need to happen and need to take place in relationships. There is a little bit of compromise, but from my experience, most women want to change you. They want to make you into this, like, what they want you to be. A lot of women don't know how to let their man be, and how to let a man be happy. This is what I've noticed with a lot of women, is that they just don't know how to let a man be happy. So um that's pretty much why I'm single, guys. I just feel like, it just hasn't been in the cards. Have I met some good women? Yeah, I've met some really great women in the past, who are really good women, really cool girls, but it just hasn't. A lot of this was in my younger years, so a lot of times I was in a different phase, they were in a different phase. And I do feel that as a black man, the older you get, the harder it's going to be for you to find a compatible partner. You know, like I'm 31 years old now, and I noticed that like I'm starting to attract more black women, which is interesting. And a lot of these women are not my type. It's unfortunate, you know, it's unfortunate, but a lot of these women are just not my type. They're just not my, we're just not compatible. You know, could I bust them down? Could you know, go on a date with these girls and bust them down? Sure. But I know where that goes. I know where that road leads. And I've seen it before. I've seen it all before when it comes to dating. And, you know, it's just like you just, as a black man, you get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed more where you know you start to figure that it might be over, you know, just it might be over. um I've noticed that I attract less white women, less interracial women now that I'm 31. I actually attract less interracial women, especially like on dating apps and stuff like that. And even even in public, in person, I attract, when I was younger, I attracted more white women because here's my theory on this. I think that when I was younger, and this might be for you too, a lot of these white women, whatever, they're down to hook up with you. They're in their fuck around phase, whatever their whole phase. They're getting blown out. They're getting their boxes just blown out, popped. You know, getting their coochies popped night after night after night after night. And you know, I think that they're looking for those other young people in their age range in your 20s, but I think a lot of women filter out ages on, especially on dating apps. And I'm noticing this. I'm literally noticing this in real time. A lot of women are, I believe, they filter out that by age. You know, so I think that that's why I'm now attracting more black women, especially like on Hinge and all these apps, whatever, and even in person. Like I'm noticing that I'm getting less interest in general from white women in America. Now this might be different if I go overseas or whatever, but in America, I have noticed this, you know, and I still do attract interracial women, but I've noticed a drastic decline in that. So now I'm noticing just way more black women now. And it makes sense because a lot of people hook up or they marry their own races. So they assume that, okay, this is a 31-year-old man. He probably wants a relationship. So, you know, it makes sense that my own race is trying to pick me. But the problem is that it's just not for me. You know, I need a certain type and I can't settle. I just cannot settle. I can't do it. I can't compromise my own happiness, my own well-being for the sake of just being in a relationship. I just can't do it. So anyway, man, that is pretty much it for today's video, guys. I will see you in the next one.